Hello, welcome to another Catholic Wesleyan video. Today I wanted to offer a brief reflection on the recent Stephen Colbert interview of Andrew Garfield. There were a few comments about church teaching that was made that I want to offer clarification so people understand very clearly exactly what the Catholic Church teaches in these matters. Apparently, both Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver had spent some time at a Jesuit monastery, also known as the Society of Jesus, which is a part of the Catholic Church. And it's not quite clear whether or not the comment that Andrew made about pantheism came from a misunderstanding of what was taught, or he was making a comparison between what he understands to be pantheism and what he was being told in the monastery. I wanted to make very clear that the Catholic Church rejects pantheism. It also rejects pantheism, and I'll define both of those for you very briefly. Pantheism is the idea that the world is God, that there is no distinction between God and the world at all. Pantheism, all theism, all things are God. And this is rejected by the Church because the Catholic Church teaches that God transcends all of creation. He made creation ex nihilo, from nothing. He made it from nothing. It's not an emanation from himself. It's not a part of himself. It's not himself. We are distinct, and he is infinitely removed from us and being wholly other. So it's very important that we understand the transcendence of God as being distinct from us. Pantheism is a similar view of pantheism, where part of God is the world and part of the God is not. So in a sense, they're saying that everything that we see is in fact God, but there is a part of God that isn't what we see. And so maybe they could cater a little bit to the idea of God transcending all things, but not in the sense that the Church teaches. The Church teaches that there is no connection between God and His creation in terms of being. We are not an emanation from God. We are not part of Him. We don't complete Him. We're not His body. God is completely distinct. So when the Catholic Church talks about seeing God in the love that people have for one another, or seeing God in the beauty of a sunset, or recognizing God in the wisdom that we have. We're talking about God, we're conceptualizing Him by way of analogy. We're not saying that God is music, we're not saying that God is the sunset, we're not saying that God is that act of love that we have between one another. What is being said is that the sunset is beautiful. It's analogous to the one who is all beautiful. And likewise with wisdom. Whatever we can speak of wisdom and conceptualize it within our mind are but an analogy of the all-truthfulness that is God. So that's the good, the true, and the beautiful. Anything that we see good among us. This is but an analogy for us to understand the one who is all good. And so it's important that we recognize that when we talk about seeing God in a sunset, or seeing God through music, for instance, as some people would argue, there is a God because there is the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. People who see God in beauty and art, they do so analogously, by way of an analogy. but not because they are actually seeing God himself in these things, and not because these things are themselves God. This is the sense in which we could say that in God we move and live and have our being. The Catholic Church does not teach pantheism. It does not teach panentheism. We don't get close to those definitions simply because we simply just reject the premise of the position. I also wanted to mention that when Andrew was asked about angels, he gave several different answers that were contrary to one another. He said, at first he spoke of them as metaphor, and then he spoke of them as energy. Well, I mean, they're either going to have substance or they're not. And energy is very vague. It could mean many different things. It could be taken in a very loose sense to refer to activity, angelic activity, the movement of spirits going here and there, so to speak. Or it could be taken in a very erroneous notion that somehow they are part of the material world. And we could test this energy empirically, and much like we can analyze heat energy and things of that nature. It's not quite clear what his view is. At the end, he simply said yes, but from his response, he definitely wasn't ready for the question, I don't think. But in the Christian perspective, angels are real beings. They're spiritual beings. They're not corporeal. All right, so they're not comprised of matter, not comprised of anything that could be tested empirically, anything that we could perceive through the five senses. But they're very real personal beings. Satan is a real personal being. Both Jesus and the New Testament make very clear and unequivocally that these beings do exist, that God did in fact create angels, and that they are his servants, and that some of them fell. I respect Andrew as an actor. I greatly enjoyed his Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man series, and I greatly enjoyed the interview between Stephen Colbert and Andrew Garfield. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the Catholic Church doesn't teach pantheism or panentheism. The Catholic Church does in fact teach that angels are very real, and and it's also very possible that these perspectives of his that he shared during the interview weren't entirely his fault. It's not uncommon for people in monasteries, bishops, priests, and others to be dissenters, people who question church teaching, but heretics, apostates, people who are in active schism or in a division against the church, those things are not uncommon. So it's very possible he was fed erroneous information as well. So there's certainly no blame to pin on Andrew. Seems like a very intelligent guy. And so with that, I just wanted to close with, if you ever have any questions about what Catholic teaching is, feel free to get a hold of me somehow through my YouTube account, the Catholic Wesleyan, or you can just look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, or I may be able to recommend a book that is fully Catholic, that is endorsed by the Magisterium, that won't have any errors concerning your faith and morals. So with that, I appreciate you watching, and God bless.